Hi, it's me again with Corel Roll Tips and Tricks. Somebody was going to buy this file off the SD, but it only comes in a PDF, and she ended up buying it. And I don't know if it's going to engrave at all. It could possibly. I'm going to actually try it tomorrow. It could possibly engrave, but I was trying to show her or anybody that you could take a clip art fish off the internet and add a little bling to it with some 3D of the scales. And I engraved just a little bit of this because I've done a lot of 3D engraving, but I've never done it where I had regular engraving, and you can see it came out pretty good. And this is just part of the fish. I just cropped it out so it wouldn't spend a lot of time. But, it came out pretty good. So in other words, I'm going to call this add bling to your clip art by adding these 3Ds. So here's my 3D, and I need to make it bigger, and that's all I did was, intersect it, and then I could put that into the fish. So this is probably going to be a part 2 series, and I've shown how to draw this exact 3D pattern before, but we're going to just start again. I'm going to start out with a 1-inch circle. I'm going to back that up, and I'm going to lock my ratio. And then I'm going to set my nudge factor on 1 inch. I'm going to Control D, and I'm going to make quite a few of them. Now I'm going to group these together, Control D, and I'm going to change my nudge factor to a 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to Control D and make a duplicate. I put the down arrow key, and now I'm going to put the left arrow key. So I've got that shape. That shape is important because it's going to, they're equal, so the circle will fit into it over and over. So I'm going to take these and group them together, and I'm going to make this shape. And the reason I grouped it together, and I'm not going to do that last one because it's not finished, but the reason I grouped them together, I must have made a lot of copies. Maybe I didn't group them together. But what we can do is just, I'm going to probably select that circle. I'm just going to take away the outline for a second. Somehow I had a bunch of copies. Now we're going to left click, right click. Well, we still got those circles. I need to get rid of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to nudge these. Let me make my clip nudge factor like 2 inches. I'm going to nudge the black fill because the lines are still there, and I don't want the lines. And then we can swipe through here and delete all those lines. Now we can left click, right click. And the only reason I don't want to do that is because I want to really see what's going on. So I'm going to group this together. I'm going to change my nudge factor back to 0.5. And I'm going to Control D and move it down and over. And then Control D. And then group all these, Control D, and then move them down all at one time. And you can kind of see we're going kind of downhill. But I think we almost have enough. But you got to remember that you're going to have to reduce this in size to make it fit on the fish. Now I'm going to try this where I do anything. I'm going to go Object and group them together. Because then I'm going to go to Effects and Contour. And I'm going to make the outside of the object a light gray. But I'm going to go to the inside at 0.001 in black. And by grouping those all together, it should be doing them all. I used to do these individually and then tried to move them together. And when they're in a 3D or a contoured mode, it takes a little while. Now I've got quite a few of them, so it is taking a little bit long, but just bear with me. And so it takes a while, especially on my old laptop. Now, if you will take these, it'll make it a lot easier if you convert it to a bitmap right now. Grayscale, okay. That'll help you with the manipulation of it a little bit. And now we can reduce, and I could have probably reduced it in size, but what's happening is that's about all we need right there. Now, if we look, the scale of the fish is kind of the backwards the way you would want a scale of a fish. So we're going to rotate that kind of where the scales are going uphill. Now, we're going to move this. Let me move this out of the way, and probably have to make it a little bit bigger. But what we need a place to put the scales. And I'm not much of a fisherman, but I know one thing. What I'm going to do first is close off this gap with the 3-point curve line, and then make this right a curve. And then instead of having the lines, I'm going to make, like I did before, take the Smart Fill tool and fill that in. You know, really, if I break that line right here, that's part of a fin. You know, I think that'll work. Either go that way or put your Smart Fill here. Either way works. That actually better. But I'm going to keep that line there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my nudge factor to like 2 inches. And I'm going to nudge that out of the way twice. And then I'm going to nudge my circle out of the way, because we're going to use that in just a second. Now I can get rid of this. But we need a part of the fish that we want to have the scales. And if you look, only really the top part of the fish has the scales. And this is where your artistic ability can kind of play around with you. But we need to stop the line from going up in here into the scales or up into the fins. And actually, I want to start somewhere else. I'm going to start like right there and go right there. And then you just go up with a little bit of a curve. And then let's go down here and go a little bit of a curve. And, you know, if you know a little bit about fishing, you'll be ahead of the game if you kind of do that. So let's say those are the parts that's going to have a scale. Well, what we can do too, we can, let's take a rectangle and let's make a spot for I'm going to take the Smart Fill tool now and make it blue, because I want a spot that is going to be taken up by, we want to keep, don't forget to keep these scales, but now we can get rid of that and get rid of that, and we can nudge this up. The important thing is to always nudge and don't move. Now let's use the Smart Fill tool on a different color. And this is going to be our scale shape. Look at that. We can take away this blue now. We can actually take away our line. Our line was just there to stop. I'm actually going to left click, right click. Now the key is, don't move that, move this. And we need to make it a little bit bigger, or, you know, and probably the smaller the scale, the better. But for the video, that's going to be good enough right there. You just want to get everything in there, all the intersect part. Now I'm going to select all this, and I'm going to go up here to intersect. There's our fish scales. And then we can nudge this back down and over. And surprisingly, it really engraved pretty good. You know, just a couple things you need to think about. You know, that line right there kind of hurt us. But not really. That could just be the end of the fin, and you could play around with that. But what I do like about, you know, and a lot of people might ask, well, why not power clip? Well, here's why. Go up to Object, Power Clip, Place Inside Frame. It gets rid of your graphic and you can't use it again. And I've heard stories about it actually engraves off. But by intersecting it, you still have your graphic. You know, you haven't changed anything in case you want to put a little bit of scale somewhere else or use that scale at a later date. And the only other thing I might suggest would be able to, one, you need to make it a bitmap. Let's see what happens if we put an outline around this. I'm not even sure you can put an outline around it because it is a bitmap. But, you know, if you remember, we have the outline right there still. And you can make this thicker and maybe it would make it show off a little bit more. I don't know. That's probably too much. You just want a little bit of a line. And maybe on the fish, it would, it might look better because then your scales kind of have a stopping point. I do think that's going to look better. And, you know, there's several other things you could do to make this bling stand out. You could take the Smart Fill tool and set it on a gray, a light gray, and you could fill in this a little bit. And so that'll look, you know, maybe more like a fin. You know, you could do the same thing down here, take you the 3-point curve line and just go from there to there and then try to mimic that turn. Take the Smart Fill tool and fill that in. So there's a lot you can do with it to maybe, I'm gonna nudge that out of the way. Well, see, I already moved it. Start over, just hit delete, Smart Fill tool, nudge that out of the way because you want to take that red line away. Just in case you ever do a combination job. And that might make it look better. And maybe you put some fins, you know, here. The fish that the young lady bought looks cool when it's engraved. And she's going to test it tomorrow. I've actually sent her this. I kind of took away the background. You know, there's things that surprise you that will engrave. That might engrave. I did take away some gray on the tips. You know, this might engrave. Who knows? I might even test it tomorrow with a little place. But anyway, that's how to put a little bling. You know, and you could, and what I said earlier about the scales, you know, that won't have scales, but you could, you know, you could put scales somewhere else on him and still have your scales here. And it promise me, I'll promise if you save that, you will use that again someday on something else. Even if it's just a test, because it's a neat, you know, it's a neat 3D effect. And I'm just kind of rambling now. But if you ever needed an ornament to look like that, and you run it in 3D mode, I had somebody just recently hook up a laser, but I haven't, or the driver for it, but I haven't found out inside of Epilog's laser, when your window, there's a 3D mode, so make sure you run it in 3D because it really, really makes it stand out. And if you notice, I made the white on the outside and the black to the middle. If you do it the other way, which is okay, a lot of times that white kind of has a point in the middle, where this black is not, because it's going to be recessed. And when I did my sample today, right here, I was able to sand off the burn residue, and you can see it just barely caught. And I could have sanded some more, it would have really stood out. But I was pretty impressed, even in 3D mode. I mean, the picture does it no justice. But that's just, you know, add a little bling to your clip art. Anyway, I hope that helped a little bit. Thank you for watching.